Hello and welcome to the sales machine without the ick. And this is probably one of my more favorite topics to talk about. I like talking about them all, but I do like talking about the sales the sales machine that exists inside your business. So welcome to this training. I really enjoy this. Again, my name is Mark Dolfini for those of you who don't know me. A couple of quick things. This is going to be a lot of training in about roughly 50 minutes or so. I have not done it on this particular platform before, but I am this is StreamYard for those of you who are not familiar with it. Usually I'm used to doing it on Zoom. I wanted to try this just because, well, for a couple of different reasons, but if you're seeing this on replay, this is intentional. I just want you to sit back. But because you're not on Zoom, maybe if you're watching this on replay, I don't want you getting distracted. Shut off all of your social media stuff. I just want you to stay plugged in during the time that you're watching this so you can take ample notes. Don't be distracted. Don't allow yourself to be distracted. If it's worth watching and paying attention to, because there's going to be a lot of detailed stuff in here, and I just don't want you to miss anything. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. Let's talk first and foremost about, let me go ahead and make myself a little bit, there we go. You don't need to see me. I want you to see the slides. But realistically, there's a couple of reasons why people often hate selling. And probably the biggest reason is that you feel like you have to convince someone to do something that they don't want to do, that you're trying to convince someone to buy. And that's just a really horrible situation to feel like you're putting yourself in all the time. Maybe you don't like asking people for money. Maybe you have a bad relationship with money yourself. And oftentimes because you don't like asking people for money, or because you have a bad relationship with money, you just hate that part where you get to the sale where you're asking, you have to ask someone, and all of a sudden you're like, ugh, this is terrible. I don't like this part. I don't like asking for money. You get to the ask. Maybe you feel like you're bothering people, right? Does anybody out there feel like they're bothering people or don't like asking? That they like, well, I know that they need this thing. I know that they really like it, but man, I just hate asking people for money. And yeah, I'm getting some responses there. Absolutely. It's that situation. It took me a really long time to feel like I could get to the other side of this. And it took me a while to get there. So what we're going to talk about today, let's go over the presentation contents today. We're going to talk about the Viper method first and foremost, and the 4 core functions. For those of you who have followed me at all, whether on YouTube or other social media, maybe you read my book. We'll talk about my book here in just a second. These are the foundational parts of what I talk about, the Viper method and the 4 core functions. We'll get into both of those parts here real quick. And then we're going to be talking about the lead generation function. You're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. If this is about sales, why are we talking about lead generation? Well, the lead generation piece cannot be ignored in reference to sales, because if you're not paying attention to the lead generation, it's going to make your selling much more difficult. So getting the lead generation piece right up front actually helps you significantly with your sales. So then we will get into the sales function, and then of course we're going to talk about some success strategies at the very end. So what I talk about in the Viper method is a strategic approach to managing your life and your business, right? This is the Viper method that I've mentioned before, and I'll go ahead and mention it again if this is the first time you're being exposed to it. But the Viper method is an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. And this is the interesting thing. Like, this is all around the systems and processes part of the business, right? Now, the systems and processes part exists. If you're looking at the screen there, the infrastructure and process, that's kind of where the system lies. Specifically for those of you who are, the purists of the method, you understand it's infrastructure, and not the entire process, but just the tactical part of the process. There's a strategic planning part of process there that is not included in the system so much, but the day-to-day running of the system is the infrastructure and the tactical part of process. Those are the systems. Now, for those of you who would like to be more exposed to the Viper method, you can check all of this stuff out, the Viper method and the 4 core functions of business, in this book, The Time Wealthy Advantage. You can get a signed copy. and for a lot cheaper than on Amazon. And I'll give you a 30-minute one-to-one coaching session in addition to that. So we'll talk about that on the end and how to get that. But please don't multitask right now. I don't want to put the offer up there now and then you get distracted and everything else. But realistically, I just want you to stay plugged in right now, because first and foremost, the V part of the vision, or I'm sorry, the V part of the Viper method is vision. And that includes two different aspects of vision, which is personal vision and business vision. And the personal vision is really where it is that you want to go, right? And the business vision is how are we going to get there? Now, for those of you who heard me talk about this before, it's really important to have a personal vision built out, because if you don't have a personal vision, you're going to end up creating this business vision that's going to end up basically overcoming your life, right? So, the interesting thing, hold on, one second here. There we go. The interesting thing about this is when you create your personal vision, everything, all roads lead to that. And that's really important. Even though we're talking about sales right now, you're like, well, what does this have to do with sales? Everything has to do with your personal vision. Everything, including how you sell, including who you sell to, including the conversion tool that you use to convert these people from prospect to buyer. Why does that matter? Well, I'll give you a quick example. Back when I was, let me take this off the screen here for just a quick second. Back when I was traveling around a lot. Now, for those of you who maybe know my background a little bit, I used to go by the moniker landlord coach, and I was coaching a lot of people in the space of managing the rental properties a lot better. I wrote a book called The Time Wealthy Investor 2.0, and I traveled around to lots of different real estate investor groups and landlord associations and just different places like that. And I would sell that crowd into whatever coaching or whatever it was I had. And it was a lot. There was a lot that went into it. So I would drive out to different places. I'm in Indiana, so I might drive out to Missouri. There was folks in Joplin that I went to. There was folks even further west than that. There were places on the East Coast and New Jersey and New York and just different places there that I would speak at. And it was a lot of driving, a lot of traveling, a lot of being away from my family. And that was my conversion tool. Now, I will tell you that eventually that did not align with my personal vision. So right now we have three children. We have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 2-year-old daughter. Now, I wanted to be home with them more often. And me being on the road for almost 2 weeks out of a month did not align with my personal vision. So that's why I'm saying, like, if the sales function is part of the conversion tool, where in that if the conversion tool in your sales function involves you driving around and being at all different places all over the United States and being away from home, you have to recognize if that is in alignment with your personal vision or not. That's why I'm bringing this up now, because here's the reality. The danger in creating a business vision before you create a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And that is really important, because in this particular case here, when you're reading this slide, think about this. In this particular case, your business vision, and that when I was driving around and driving all those investor groups, my business vision became my personal vision. I existed to serve the business rather than the business existing to serve me. So you have to be really careful about this sort of stuff, because this can really take up a lot of time and bandwidth if you're not careful. So this is why it's so important to have a business vision and a personal vision that are separate from one another. And the personal vision comes first. When you're thinking about the context of the business vision, I like to think of 3 C's: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Now, this is going to be really, really important in the sales function. We'll talk about that here in the sales function here in a second. But the understanding your core purpose, specifically what business are you in and what problems do you solve, those are really 2 important questions for you to ask in the terms from the perspective of your core purpose. That's really important to think about, is what business are you in and what problems do you solve, almost to the exclusion of what you don't do and what problems you don't solve. That's really important for you to be really, really clear on that. Let's look at your core purpose, your core values. So we talked about core purpose. What business are you in? What problems do you solve? Your core values is what the business stands for. And think of it this way. Who would suffer if you were no longer in business? Whose life would be worse off if you were no longer in business? And because there are people who are probably doing business very similar to you, but because you have a different perspective or a different offer or a different outlook, they get better service than or a better solution. For example, that might be a better way to say it, a better solution than what your competitors would. So we talked about core purpose, right? What business are you in? What problems do you solve? We talked about core values. What is important to you about this business and how would the world be worse off if you are no longer in business? Last is the client avatar. The client avatar, you're going to hear me talking about that a lot for the rest of this class because the client avatar is really, really important that you understand them very, very well at a deep level. The reason for this is because you really understand what makes them cry, what makes them happy, what 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 is keeping them up at night, and what problems or what solutions can you offer for their various problems. And sometimes those solutions that you offer don't really have much to do with your core purpose, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean it's something that you charge for. You just say, hey, look, I know this might be something that you might want, and here's a free resource that you can have. Does not alignment with it. It doesn't have anything to do with what I do for money, but here's a solution for you. Think about it from that perspective. You might say, well, how could that work? Well, think about it from the perspective of I am an author and I've written several books. In fact, this year I published 5 books alone. And they're the one main book is the Time Wealthy Advantage. That's the book that I mentioned earlier. And there's 4 supplement guides that come along with those. Now, am I operating a publishing company? No, but those low dollar solutions might be exactly what a person needs to get the solution in their hands, and they don't need to spend a lot of money with me on coaching. They might just need what's in the book. Some people do need more, but not everybody does, and not everybody is in a financial position to do that, and that's okay. But the point is that I understand my avatar at such a deep level that I know how to bring solutions to them that are most going to solve all the things that they've got going on in their life from the perspective of being married, having kids, and having a business that doesn't run their life. All right. So now that we've kind of unpacked the Viper method, right? So this is the V of the Viper method, the personal vision and business vision. There's 4 other parts of it: the infrastructure, the process, the execution, reporting. I don't have time to get into that right now, but those are all the other remaining parts of the Viper method. You can read about it in the Time Wealthy Advantage. Let's look at the 4 core functions of business. Now, the 4 core functions of business have to exist in any business. It does not matter what kind of business it is. Those 4 functions are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. Lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting. All right. So your customer's experience in your business happens in this order. Because when you're looking at the lead generation, this is how they find out about your company. This is what goes on in networking. This is what goes on in if you're running different ads. Let's say that you've got a YouTube channel, right? I've got a YouTube channel. Let's say that you've got a Facebook group. I've got a Facebook group, right? Like, this is all things that generate leads. Like, let's face it, this right here is part of lead generation. I actually like teaching, so I actually don't mind doing it. But be sure to know that this is absolutely part of lead generation. It lets the world know what it is that I'm doing, and it lets them know that I can demonstrate some competence. And that's going to be really, really important in the sales function, is to demonstrate competence as quickly as possible, because competence builds trust. Competence builds trust, and you want to be able to get them to trust you as quick as possible. And the fastest way to do that is to demonstrate competence, to demonstrate you know what you're talking about. So that's the part of the lead generation function. The sales function just picks up the conversation where the lead generation function leaves off. So when you're talking about sales, you're basically saying someone's raised their hand and say, yes, I am interested in what it is that you have to sell. And yet that sales conversation is picking up that conversation where the lead generation function leaves off. So The interesting thing here is that you have to stop and consider that there's different types of sales here. What I'm talking about is generally going to be knee to knee, shoulder to shoulder, or sitting at a kitchen table, higher ticket type sales. But this approach that I'm going to be talking about here is really it's also going to be about, it could be higher ticket or lower ticket, but it's generally going to be involving a conversation. All right. So I'm going to follow it through with this solutions based selling model and let you know what that looks like. So lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. Let's talk about the lead generation function just for a second. So when you're looking at lead generation again, lets the world know that you're out there through a variety of marketing approaches. Let's look at some of those various approaches just to get some context. So there's for example, you have outbound marketing approach. You have an inbound marketing approach. You have direct response. There is networking. You have different alliances that you can make. You have joint ventures that you can make, press releases, affiliate marketing, all these different reasons, all these different approaches to marketing. Now, let me just stop because you might say, well, what in the heck is the difference between outbound and inbound? Outbound advertising or outbound marketing, I want you to think of it as interruption marketing. That's the type of marketing that everybody's familiar with. Those are like the commercials that come up on the radio. Those are maybe you're driving down the road and you see a billboard, right? It interrupts your vision, right? It interrupts your view, but it's basically interruption advertising. You might be you might get mail, right? That basically you open it up and you say, oh, okay, well that makes I could use this service or not, or you just throw it in the trash can, right? It's interruption marketing. That's what outbound marketing is, from a very basic perspective. Inbound marketing is a little different. That's when it's initiated by the avatar. That's when it's initiated by the client. So if outbound advertising, let's say again, it's interruption marketing, outbound advertising or outbound marketing is initiated by the company, right? By the business. Inbound marketing is initiated by the prospect. So that might be, they go on the internet and they say, how do I lose weight? Right. And because of your SEO, your search engine optimization puts you near the top of the search function. And now people who are searching on how to lose weight, they see your website, they go to your website and you have on there, hey, download this free white sheet and calorie tracker app on your phone, and you can do this automatically for free. That is inbound, right? So they have initiated it and they have raised their hand to say, yes, I'm interested in what you have. Okay. So that's just one, those are two different approaches. Direct response can be used in either one of those. So direct response is basically where they say, you have a very specific offer that says, hey, are you interested in X, Y, or Z? Click here, right? That means it's a very, very specific offer. And the opposite of that would be branding. That would be like you just mailing out a bunch of flyers that don't really have an offer attached to it. It just says, hey, if you're interested in heating and air cooling, heating and air, give us a call, like heating and air service, right? For like your furnace or air conditioning. Well, there's no offer on that. There's no real response. There's no reason for them to respond, right? It's just kind of like, oh, okay, right? That's not really an offer. That's just like, if you ever need us, think of us, right? It's more of a branding approach where you're looking at a billboard and you're just driving down the interstate and you might see a just drink Coke, right? There's no offer on that. It doesn't say drive to this very specific store and pick up a 12 pack of Coke for $10, right? It doesn't say that. It just says drink Coke. That's branding. So direct response gives them a very specific thing to do, right? Hey, this $99 offer lasts for this period of time. Go to this link on this website and click right here to order it, right? It gives you a very, very specific thing to do. Networking, again, that's kind of just getting your name out there. There's a lots of things. I'm actually going to be hosting a training on networking, specifically on the top 10 mistakes that people make and what to do about them. But generally, people aren't great at networking because they don't know how to network well. And a lot of times it's because they haven't developed enough trust right out of they haven't developed enough trust to be referable. And that's often the problem, is they're often trying to sell to the person across the table from them rather than developing a networking relationship. Alliances, joint ventures, these are very similar, but a joint venture, even though a joint venture and alliances are similar, and that they're both looking to expand their markets, alliances tend to be a little bit less formal and are usually formed by two companies that are in complementary industries. Um, think like Starbucks and Barnes and Noble bookstores, right? They have a strategic alliance. Both companies remain separate, but they operate under a memorandum of understanding. Joint ventures and JVs tend to be more formal, where there's two entities that come together, they form a new legal entity. And they tend to be companies in two very different industries, but they're forming one legal entity. That's generally how they form. Again, affiliate marketing. You can use press releases, for earned media, and then of course you can use affiliate marketing, which is basically where you're marketing someone else's product in exchange for commissions. There's a lot of coaches, for example, who use affiliate marketing. So those are just different approaches. Now, all of this is going to it's much easier to understand if you understand the 15 reasons why people will buy. This is really, really important, because when you start to think about this and you get really clear in terms of why people will buy from you, this is going to make it a lot easier for you to solve problems for them, i.e., sell to them. Now, we're not trying to convince people that they need you. It's just, hey, if you have this problem, here's the solution. Here's the potential solution that I have. Right. So that's really important when you're thinking about the top 15 reasons why people will buy. And I'll go ahead and put these all up on the screen here so you can take a screenshot or you can think about this. But I want you to think about all the ways, directly or indirectly, how your service or product helps them make money. Directly or indirectly, how do you help people make money? Directly or indirectly, how do you help them save money? Directly or indirectly, how do you help them save time, avoid effort, or escape pain? And not just physical pain, but emotional pain, right? Maybe it's relationship pain, whatever it is. More comfort, better health. And better health, you might say, well, I sell books. I don't really know how I'm going to give people better health. Okay, well, how about less stress, right? How about more enjoyment in their life? That would give them better health, right? Again, directly or indirectly. How do you help them gain praise, feel more love, increase their status? People will often buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. Think of the state of politics in the United States. People are hitching their wagon to a certain brand of politics because they have felt lied to in the past. And that goes in both directions. I'm a little light, I'm right leaning, but right now, I just don't care. I just stay out of my way. I don't want the government in my pocket, and I don't want them telling me how I should feel. People will buy for growth, especially personal growth. They will buy for novelty, especially if they feel that just something is new. A lot of people just buy for new. They will buy for more certainty or more perceived control. Think about that, especially if they feel like, think of how many parents are trying to buy they'll buy books, they'll buy videos, they'll buy therapy to get more control or more certainty over their children. How about maybe buying to be in contribution to others, or just feeling like they're in contribution to others? Those are all really, really important things. And when you're thinking about all of these different things, I want you to really go through that exercise of walking through the 15 reasons why they will buy your products from you. When they have all these different choices, why are they buying it from you? That's really important to understand. So when you start to back into that for the three C's of business vision, you can get really clear around the core purpose, the core values, and the client avatar, why they are buying from you, why they are going to want to do business with you, so that when you have the sales conversation, right? Again, the sales conversation just continues the conversation started by the marketing approach. And guess where the 15 reasons why people buy is initiated? In the lead gen, right? In lead generation. If you're putting lead generation out there, and let me take this slide down for just a second. If you're putting lead generation out there that lets them know that you, in your lead generation, understand what their problems are, that you let them know that you understand, hey, look, I know money is tight. Let me explain how I know, right? Let's say that you really like working with single mothers. You can let them know, right? And this is why it's important to understand that avatar, that what it's like to feel like you don't have support. There's lots of single mothers that would resonate with that, especially if they are doing it alone, or especially if for whatever reason, because they don't have a support system, they feel like they're doing it by themselves. That would really resonate, right? What about someone who doesn't have kids or can't have kids, right? They've got their own issues. What if if there's someone who's in business with their spouse and they feel like every conversation that they have becomes a mini board meeting, right? Where's the romance? Where did that go? All the conversations seem to stem around the business. Again, I know this because not only do I live that from time to time, I have to be careful because I was once in business with my bride, but I work with a lot of avatar and they tell me this. I feel like they're losing their identity because their marriage has become the support system for this business. These are different things that your lead generation can address for your avatar. So this is why it's really important to recognize how the lead generation function starts to feed into the sales. So that's why it's important to know those 15 reasons why people buy. Now, the reality is that a lot of people, they often hate selling because, like I mentioned earlier, you feel like you have to convince someone to do something they don't want to do, right? They take the let me hold your head underwater until you say yes approach to selling. And that's not selling. That's being a bully, right? Again, people hate asking people for money, or they feel like they're bothering people. All right. Now, so let's talk about some success strategies. And this is where we're going to spend the rest of our time today. This is why you have to align your lead generation and your sales, right? They have to be in alignment. If they are not in alignment, they're going to be disconnected, disjointed, and the confused mind will always say no. So, in other words, let's say that you have a let's say you have an ad that is, let's just use a very simple example. Let's say that you have an ad out there that is a black and white ad, right? The overall colors in there are black and white, and it's a good ad, right? And it drives lots of traffic. But if that traffic that's black and white, okay, brings them to another site that's orange and blue, people are going to be like, am I at the right place? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Does that make right? Are you tracking what I'm saying? If the even from down to the font, if the font type is different from over here to where you're sending them, that can be confusing to them. If the type of language, let's say you're using overly formal language on your lead generation, and then you get them to your site and you're very overly casual, they may wait a minute, there's a disconnect here. So that's why all of these things have to be in alignment. And it's really important that your lead generation and your sales strategies also are in alignment. So let's talk about learning how to sell. Now, learning how to sell is really important because learning how to sell involves salesmanship. And that is probably, outside of your ability to generate leads, is probably the one thing that is going to benefit your business more than any other thing, is learning how to sell. Because once you learn how to sell, like all of those leads that are coming in, if you can convert 30, 40, 50% of them, you're not going to lack for money. Now, granted, it all starts with lead generation. You might be the best salesman ever in the history of mankind, but if you don't have enough leads, you're still going to starve. In fact, let's go one step further, is you might have the most efficient and amazing product and service, and it is superior in every way, but it won't matter if you don't have enough leads. You will still starve. So I'm not saying that sales is irrelevant, but unless or until you have enough leads, it is. So I want to make sure that you keep your foot on the gas when it comes to lead generation. But this is about maximizing the number of leads that are coming in so that you can just learn how to have a conversation with them. Before we wrap up here today, I want to talk to you about having a support system, because it is going to be really important to have a support system when, not just from a training perspective, but also when you have a tough sale. We'll talk about that here at the end. So the framework that I'm laying this out is having a discovery session. Now, what a discovery session is, it's a brief call or a brief conversation that qualifies your lead and becomes a prospect. It qualifies your lead and it becomes a prospect. In my mind, this is where the sales process begins. That's when someone raises their hand and says, "Hey, I am interested in what you have to say. I am interested in what you have. I'm not ready to be a buyer yet necessarily, but what is it that you have? I want to know what it is that you have to offer." So this is all part of the discovery session. In the discovery session, I'm going to put some things down here, and it's really important that you get this out as soon as possible. You need to get this information from them, because if you don't, and you wait until the sales conversation to do it, you will be playing from behind. So trust and know that this discovery session, sometimes the discovery session leads right into the sales conversation, and that's okay. But you have to have this stuff initially so you know how to have the conversation with them. All right. So first and foremost, get their name. Why do you think I'm asking their name? Why do you think I'm asking? Because people love hearing the sound of their name. If I said, "Hey, Joe, I'm so glad that you could join me today on this call." Now Joe feels a little bit more significant. I've made him feel a little important because I've used him by name. That's really, really important, to get their name, and to not only get their name, but to utilize their name. So you get their name. My suggestion, if you're not great with remembering names, write their name down. I would say this is very true, especially with difficult names. Like if they have like a foreign name and you really struggle with that, get their name to a point where you can say it well. And just, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not great with names, but can you help me say your name right?" That they really will appreciate that. Don't try to butcher their name. Don't come up with a cute nickname for them. That's again becoming way too overly familiar with them. Get their name and get it right, and use it often. Now, I will generally ask, again, this is in the discovery session, tell me what you got going on. Tell me what brings you in today. What's the reason for your call? You can do this in a very conversational tone. "Hey, Joe, it's good. Yeah, tell me your name, Joe. Is it Joe? Joe? Okay, cool. Well, great. So, Joe, tell me what it is that you got going on today." "Well, I've got X, Y, or Z." Right? And they're going to say what it is that's going on. What's brought them in? Why are they there? Why are they there to buy a television? Why are they there to get, what's wrong with their car? Why are you calling me about your roof? Whatever it is, tell me what it is about what's going on. All right. Then this is all probably in the first 5 minutes of conversation. Okay, cool. Do you have a budget in mind for what you're working with? Now, sometimes it just depends on the nature of the product that you're selling. There may be just a set price for certain things. Again, like a brake job is a brake job, but sometimes do you have a budget in mind in terms of what you're looking to put in your car? Because if we find other things, do you want me just to fix them, or do you want me to call you on everything? Or, hey, do you have a budget in mind of what you're working with? This is also really important. I've seen with contractors, like with people who are putting on decks or home additions or things like that. Do you have a budget in mind that you're working with? And that's important to ask that question, just so you can get a gauge in terms of what it is. Or let's say that you are working with like brakes in the car. You let them know, "Hey, something like this might be around $600. Is that kind of what you had in mind?" And they might go, "Oh man, that's a lot more than I was expecting." Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to tell you. Is that something that you want to think about, or is that something you're ready to move forward with? Right? Because that will go directly into your timeline. That asking them their timeline. How quickly are you looking to solve this problem? That's really, really important to ask them their timeline, not just how quickly are you looking to have this problem solved, but how quickly are you looking to get started? Because let's say, for argument's sake, let's say you're doing a a build out on someone's home, right? Let's say that you do home remodels, and which it will include an addition. So it's going to be a $200,000 endeavor, right? Okay, cool. This is a pretty sizable scope of work. When are you looking to have this thing completed? Well, I really would like to have it completed by Thanksgiving because we were having some family over. Okay, if that's the case, then we need to get started like in the next couple of days, definitely within the next week, because we've got to get permits, we've got to get, architects, we've got to get all these people done, et cetera, et cetera. Or, hey, look, I don't know that that's possible, right? But this is, again, where you start to establish yourself as credible, start to establish your competence, and let them know, hey, yeah, I think we can actually get this going, but we have to get, whether you choose me or you choose someone else, I would choose someone quickly, because that timeline is going to get compressed very fast, especially if we have a wet, a wet summer or a wet winter or whatever, blah, blah, blah. There's reasons for making sure that they advance the timeline rather quickly. So again, the timeline is not just when they want to have it done, but when they're looking to get started. Even for something small, like, again, like a brake job, when are you looking to have this done? I mean, realistically, you're probably okay to drive on a little bit more. I know they're grinding right now, but I don't think you're going to risk brake failure right now. But, are you going to need your car for a couple of days? Because we may need time to order parts. We don't necessarily know what's going on in there until we get the wheels off, blah, blah, blah. Like, what's going on? Again, I'm making a little bit of this up. But the point is asking them their timeline, not just when they want to have it completed, but when they want to get started. It's really important to understand that timeline, and you'll understand here in a second as to why. Also, I like to ask what their history is and what kind of past experiences that they've had working with someone like me, right? So many people haven't necessarily worked with a strategist. Many people refer to me as a coach, which is, I understand why. But, have you ever worked with a coach before? Or have you ever worked with a consultant before, right? Okay, tell me about that experience. Have you ever worked with a contractor before? Really? Tell me about that experience. Now, this, regardless of their answer, regardless of their answer, this is important. Let me take this down real quick. Regardless of their answer, this opens you up to allowing you to tell them how you work. Oh, okay. You've worked with a roofing contractor before? Okay, cool. Let me tell you how we work. Oh, you've worked with an interior designer before? Cool. Well, let me tell you how we work, right? Let me tell you how we do things. And because we're a little bit different than most, right? And asking them, did you have a good experience with that roofer? Like, oh, you worked with a roofer before? How'd that go? Oh, it went pretty well. Okay, cool. Well, let me tell you how it is that we do business. Okay. I'm great. You had a good experience. How did that work with your last contractor? Oh, not so great. Oh, okay. Well, let me tell you what it is that we do, right? Or what I probably would say, oh, what happened? Well, they didn't communicate. They didn't do X. They didn't do Y. They didn't do Z. Or it is good, important to ask, again, what's been your past experience? Oh, it didn't go well. Cool. Not cool. Like, can you tell me what happened? They may explain to you, well, I asked them to call me every hour on the hour, and they just refused to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't either. Right? Now, I have a property management business as well. I would always ask them this question, especially if they were leaving another property manager. And I would say, well, tell me about what it is that you got going on. And they would say, well, I expect them to drive by the house, every Friday and send me a photo of the price. And I don't know why that's such a big deal. I'm like, well, I would do that, but we're going to charge you for it. Oh, no, I want you to do, well, that should be in the management fee. No, that's not part of the management fee. The management fee does not cover that. Right. So I can understand why your property manager probably wants to get rid of you because you're a pain in the neck. Right. So it is important to ask them their past experiences, but it's also really important to make sure you understand the frame in terms of what those experiences were. So tell me about your experiences. Good, bad. Okay. Why was that? Why was it so good? Why was it so bad? Or, was it anything, to talk about, more? Thank you, Lauren. This is really important to understand that. So when you bring them back to understanding the past experiences, that gives you a frame now to talk about your core purpose, what it is that you do, how you operate, and it helps you establish competence, which helps you build trust. Now, this last section here is the decision makers. You absolutely positively need to make sure that you have all the decision makers involved when you're about to go into the sales conversation. Now, the sales conversation could happen right from here, okay? But it is important that you know who the decision makers are. Because let's say, for argument's sake, again, this is all based on your avatar. If your avatar thinks that $10,000 is not a lot of money, right? Then they might say, oh, it's a credit card transaction to them, right? Yeah, I can go ahead and make that choice. No big deal, right? But it is important to understand who the decision makers are at this point, because after this is the sales conversation. After this is the sales conversation. And what you're trying to avoid is to say, well, I really need to talk with my fill in the blank, my spouse, my son-in-law, my lawyer, my accountant, whatever, right? Okay, cool. Are they going to be part of the decision? Because if so, let's bring them all into the decision. Let's bring them all into the conversation now so we can answer any questions, any concerns that you have. That way we can be much more efficient with our time. Now, I say this kind of as a hardline stance. Sometimes that is absolutely just not possible due to time constraints, due to other things. Like you might be talking to one member of a board, and that person is going to bring that conversation to a board. So you are not by design having all the decision makers, and they're designing it that way. That's more of a B2C conversation. Sometimes it's just unavoidable, but you try to have as much power over having all the decision makers in the room as much as you can. Now, this is where I've talked about before, demonstrating competence creates trust. And this is when you can determine when you're, if this is even a person that you want to work with. This is where you can start to say and start having the sales conversation where you're saying, all right, look, I want to have more selling like I want to engage more conversation with you, because based on what you said the problem is, and based what it is that I have, I think I can help you. Would you be interested in having more conversation around this? Okay, cool. Hey, can we get the decision makers on a call? Can you talk with them? Can we schedule something right now? Or hey, are you ready to have that conversation right now? Okay, so you can transition right into it. But again, this is where you're going to be demonstrating your competence to build as much trust as you can along the way. And this is also where you're going to be selling without that having that icky feeling of like trying to hold people's head underwater, where you're just making it very conversational. So now let's talk about the sales conversation. When you're heading into the sales conversation, keep in mind everything I just talked about before was the discovery conversation, was the discovery call. Now we're actually heading into the sales conversation. And keep in mind, they might be back to back. They might be weeks apart. But regardless, you want to make sure that you're having where you transition into the sales conversation. Now, the bonding and rapport, this is something where I know a lot of people, especially new salespeople, they spend too much time focusing on, is the prospect, do they like me? Do they like me? To be quite frank, it is easier if they do like you, but it's not a prerequisite. Like people will buy from you even if they don't necessarily quote unquote like you. They just want their problem solved. I know that there was a lot of doctors that I did not really care for their bedside manner, but as long as I felt they could solve the problem for my kid, I really didn't care that I liked them that much. Right? Let's be honest. Okay. So the bonding rapport, lots of salespeople who get into this early, they're more worried about the person. Oh yeah, we really bonded, we really rapport, we really talked about things that were really jiving together. That's not what bonding and rapport is for. Bonding and rapport is for paying attention to how they make decisions. Bonding and rapport is paying attention to what they're afraid of. Bonding and rapport is paying attention to where they have been disappointed in the past. That's what bonding and rapport is really for. So you're paying attention to how they answer questions. You're really trying to baseline them so you know how to continue the sales conversation with them. Now, some people say, my gosh, that sounds really manipulative. Look, you're going to understand this is not about, you're not trying to manipulate them. You're just trying to get to understand in terms of how they make decisions so you can speak to them in the way that they want to be spoken to. That's really important. When you're transitioning from the bonding and rapport phase, let's say you spend a few minutes talking about what it is you're baselining them, you're trying to figure out what their basic fears are, what's important to them. Now, before you head into, now I transition into what's called the upfront contract. Now, let me just pull over and park here for a second. Some people, they make this weird. They make this very weird where they're saying, like they don't make it a transition. They don't make it a conversation. They say, all right, let's get right into sales, right? It's too much. It's too soon. If I'm having a conversation with someone, it's like, I guess I should probably earn my paycheck, right? We probably should talk about insurance or, the reason you had me here, right? What if I'm selling insurance? Or, hey, well, you were interested in buying some fleet vehicles. We probably should talk about that, right? So, um, Lauren put up, you can sometimes sense their urgency for wanting to get the money versus a flow of conversation. That's exactly right. If you're too much too soon, that will really impact. Like they're going to sense that. They're going to sense. It's almost like if in selling, I often say it that no cologne stinks as bad as desperation, and that is no more true than in selling. If they sense that you're desperate for the sale, it will come out in your words. It will come out in your body language. So this is really important that I put a video together around it's a desperation cologne. But the bonding rapport, so when you're transitioning to this upfront contract, it's very easy to say, right? So you can say, well, I should probably earn my paycheck. We probably should talk about your, what you had me out here for. Okay. Now, before we get started, let me put the slide back up because you're going to want to take notes around this. So when you're looking at this, I want you to remember, no, yes, yes, biggest fear. No, yes, yes, biggest fear. So when I'm transitioning to the upfront contract, you might say, all right, hey, listen, Tom, I just want to let you know that we're going to be talking about your situation here. And at any time you don't feel like I'm just offer the best solution for you, you can tell me no. I promise my wife's still going to love me. My kids are still going to try to spend all my money and I'm still going to eat dinner tonight. All right. So you can absolutely tell me no if you don't feel like this is the best fit for you. If on the other hand, I don't feel like I have the right fit for you, I might tell you no, that I just don't think this is worth it. And you'd probably be a better customer for someone else. No disrespect, but I would rather be a satisfied customer of someone else's than a dissatisfied customer of mine. Notice my body language of what I'm doing here. But if we can say yes, you say yes, I say yes, we figure out what that looks like on the other side. Does that make sense? Right? Now I'm waiting for them to at least nod or give some positive response or an actual yes. It's called a shy yes. And I want them to say yes. Now, listen, Tom, my biggest fear, let's press pause. Now, my biggest fear that I'm saying in this moment in time is not their biggest fear, right? It's not really my biggest fear. It's their biggest fear. And where do you think I heard their biggest fear? During the bonding and rapport. During the bonding and rapport phase, or even sometimes during the discovery call. Like, oh man, I don't want to go through that mess that I went through with that previous contractor. Or I got my car worked on in this other shop and man, they just ran me around. They never fixed it. They charged me a lot of money and I never got it fixed. Right? So that's an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you've been listening to them and you can say, listen, Tom, my biggest fear is that you're going to get hooked into a contractor that's not going to communicate, that's not going to be upfront with the pricing. And anytime there is a change that they don't communicate that well with you, and then you just get this gigantic bill and you don't even know what you paid for. That's my biggest fear. Right? So notice that I'm saying their biggest fear, not my biggest fear. Listen, my biggest fear is that you're going to work with a consultant that doesn't really listen to what your needs are and they have their own agenda. And that's not what I want for you. So at that point, I transition with a final question. So is there anything specific that you're looking to accomplish today? Is there anything specific you're looking to accomplish today? Their answer, I say, is irrelevant. It just is a great way to transition out because whatever they say, it's really going to enable you to say, cool, well, let's unpack that a little further. Let's unpack that. So again, no, yes, yes, biggest fear, right? What are you trying to accomplish today? Is there anything specific you're trying to accomplish today? And let this stuff, yes, this is absolutely going to take some training. It's going to take some practice, but this is really, really effective to let them know, hey, tell me more about what you've got going on. No, yes, yes, biggest fear. Okay, cool. Great. Tell me, is there anything specific you're trying to accomplish today? Now, at this point in time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them lots of questions, and I want to uncover their emotional, sometimes physical, but emotional pain that they're going through. And I see a lot of how do I want to say this nicely? Sales training programs that will say, well, you always want to ask why. Ask why. Why is this? Why is that important to you? Tell me more about that, right? Which is fine. That's not the problem. The problem is like they're almost not listening to the answer, right? Like, tell me why you want to buy life insurance today. Well, I want to leave my family set up in case something happens to me. Oh, okay. Well, why do you want to leave something for your family? Right? Well, I want to make sure that they have enough money coming in because I'm the sole breadwinner. My wife stays at home with the kids. I want to make sure that they have them. Well, why is that important to you? I mean, I love my family. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of them. Well, why do you love your family? I'm not kidding. Some of these programs go so deep to say, like, asking questions. You go like, what? Like, I'm just wondering how some of these people don't wind up with a black eye. like, dude, I'm about to punch you in the neck. Like, quit being obnoxious about these questions. Like, why do I love my family? Like, this is really important when you start asking really good questions. But some of these questions just got so wonky. Like, why is this? Why is that? Like, you're an annoying 3-year-old asking why. Make sure you give it context. Say, yeah, I understand how you would feel. What you're trying to unpack is the feeling. It's not. Some of these places will want you to say, well, you need to get 7 deep before they really start giving you real honest answers. Man, it's not. Emotions aren't like that. This isn't on a spreadsheet. You have to make sure that you're asking good questions, but you're uncovering the pain so that your product or service can answer that pain. You're like, okay, cool. You're feeling stuck in your business. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've got a recipe for that. I can help you with that. You're feeling, you're not sure what you're looking at with your tax returns. Okay, yeah, I can help you with that. Oh, you need a loan. Okay, cool. I can help you with that. Right? You're basically uncovering their emotional pain, what's making them cry, and then finally you're walking them back to say, cool, yep, I've got an answer for that. All right. So now when you had this conversation, now you go for the big close, right? The big close. You ready for the big close? Right? This is it. All right. So you've had this conversation. You're talking with them. Cool. How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. All right, great. Hey, this is how my product or service can actually help with that problem that you have. Yep, we can definitely do that. Did you have any other questions? Okay. You just keep asking until they don't have any more questions. All right, cool. You wait for the natural pause. And this is why you got to be, you're just like the cool side of the pillow right now. Make it easy like Sunday morning. Okay. Cool. Here comes the big close. You ready? Well, how do you want to proceed? That's it. You've had all these conversations. You've asked a lot of questions. They've asked questions. You're having an easy conversation back and forth, right? You're not trying to force them into saying, oh, you need my product or service. This is what my product or service does. It solves problems just like that, right? And then they might ask, okay, well, the budgeting questions, things like that. It's super simple, and you can be a human with it and say, cool, well, how do you want to proceed? And here comes the most difficult part. You want to guess what it is? That's right. Stop talking. For some of it, this is very difficult for me too, because I tend to be more on the chatty side, but you have to let them process. You have to let them accept, just like being a good leader, right? You have to allow for acceptance. You have to allow for times where you're going to let them accept what's going on right now. That's really, really important. Okay. So that's the big close. So now that you've gone through the big close, you've had conversations. Now you're just going to say, okay, well, let's say for argument's sake, you've had the conversations. Now you post sell. So the post sell is pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. We're getting to the end of the class here, but that's just basically saying, hey, look, before you sign the contract, can you tell me why you feel okay to say yes right now? And their answer is really, really important, because if they don't say, well, I don't know, I feel like, you have all the answers to this and that, and if they come back with you with an answer that does that mimics something that you don't do, you'd say, well, I really like the fact that you agreed to stop by my property every day and take a picture of it on your way home. Wait, no, I did not agree to that. That's not what I do, right? It's really important that you do that, and this eliminates chargebacks or any buyer's remorse on the backside. So it doesn't eliminate it entirely, but it really vastly reduces it. So again, this entire thing that I put out here, in terms of the sales conversation, is really, really important. Bonding rapport, upfront contract, no, yes, biggest fear, right? What would you like to accomplish from today? Ask questions, uncover their pain, their emotional pain. Yep, that we can handle that. Yep, that's definitely something we can help you with. All right. So you've got all your questions answered. Well, how do you want to proceed? Stop talking, let them answer. And then if they decide to move forward, then make sure that you do a post-sell before any money is exchanged or any contracts are signed. Here comes the biggest part for most salespeople is they don't follow. They don't follow up. They don't follow through. They don't follow them. And you have to stay on top of them, because sometimes people just don't want to do this. Now, this is also why I recommend that you have not just a support system. Now, the support system here, this is a group that I host on Facebook. It's called the Time Wealthy Advantage. If you would like, there's no cost to it. The only real challenge on this one is don't be a jerk. If you're a jerk, you will get booted. We just don't want jerks in that community. So I say that somewhat tongue in cheek, but I'm serious. If you come in there and you start showing your butt, you're going to get booted. So I don't want anybody feeling that they can't come in there. But that's one way that you can get support for not much dollars, or in fact, there's no investment on that. Eventbrite. I know many of you came to this event from Eventbrite. If you are interested, you are more than welcome to look at Eventbrite. And there's a link that Lauren is posting on there for me right now. So there's the Facebook link, or you can go on to Eventbrite and just follow. I've got other events coming up, like in a little bit of time, I got one that's coming up on writing and publishing a book. So you can see, if you're interested in that, or lead generation strategies, or just business growth strategies. There's lots of different events there. But that's part of having the support system. But having a system, this is where I talked about this in the Time Wealthy Advantage. If you'd like to get a signed copy of the Time Wealthy Advantage for much cheaper than on Amazon, it's $35. For this offer, I think it's just under $30. But it also includes a bonus one-to-one coaching session. If you would also like all of the support guides that come with it, there's 4 support guides there on the right-hand side of that photo. You get the lead generation guide, the sales guide, the strategic one-sheet guides, and the accounting guide. If you'd like all of those, that is also available for a little bit extra money. And that is, again, on a link that Lauren is putting up there really quick. So if you would like all of that stuff, it's all cheap. It's a signed copy. It's cheaper than on Amazon. It's a 30-minute one-to-one coaching session. I can go ahead and put that link up there if you need me to. Let's see. I can go grab that real quick. But there it is. Thank you, Lauren. But that is all I have. I know this was a lot of information in a very short period of time. I do appreciate you hanging out. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I'd love to help you out any way that I can. And hopefully you found this helpful. But again, practice this. Take some time. Learn how to use this stuff so you can feel very comfortable in it. It will feel wonky the first couple times you use it, but once you get a little bit of practice with it, this is a solutions-based selling model, which will help you become much more effective in your selling. So good luck to you out there. Utilize this. Let me know how it works for you. We'll see you guys next time.